Welcome back to the Kaufman Corner podcast. With you as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. I am Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB, and much to talk about the Kansas City Royals. Falling today, remember if you're catching us via the podcast, we are live streaming Sunday nights, 10 o'clock. Usually it's on a Sunday. Royals fall today to the Baltimore Orioles. The O's take 2 of 3. That's a 1-2 start to the 19 consecutive games that the Royals will play against teams with a winning record. The lineup, that's only a problem if you look at the top and the bottom of the lineup. Otherwise, nothing to worry about there. The rotation, Cole Ragans knocked out after just a couple of innings, less than a couple of innings. What does that mean? How good is this rotation really? And we debut. It's the playoff confidence meter. Is that what we're calling it? Playoff confidence meter?
That works. Playoff optimism meter, maybe.
Optimism.
Confidence is a word I wouldn't use quite just yet, but optimism.
Playoff optimism meter. We debut it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to Kaufman Corner, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany and the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here's your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you, Kay. Back at it here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Jazayerli, Petro with you. The Royals still well above 500. Rany, the optimism is there. I can't wait to see what your first number is on the playoff optimism meter. I'll bet we end up with about the same number because that usually ends up being the case. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's start with the lineup. It is starting to be an issue. We thought it could be, and it is, at least for right now.
It is, in the sense that the Royals overall still have one of the better lineups to this point in the season in the American League. I think they're still fourth in the American League in runs scored. They entered the day fourth in the league in OPS. And yes, they got shut out today, but one game is not going to change that too much. But it's top heavy in terms of talent, not necessarily in terms of the lineup, because obviously the top spot in the lineup is taken by Maikel Garcia, who has been in a vicious slump. But they basically have 5 guys carrying not just the lineup, the entire offense. With Nick Lofton in the minor leagues now, of the 12 guys on the roster, not counting Michael Massey, who's been on the roster for like 3 days, they have 5 guys who came in today with an OPS of at least 126. And the other 7 guys are all at 81 or less. So they have nobody in the middle. They basically have nobody on the team hitting anywhere close to league average. They have 5 guys hitting like stars and everybody else hitting like crap. So you can talk about it being a bottom or top of the lineup problem. Essentially what it is, it's just a depth problem. They only have 5 hitters and they need 9. And that's the problem.
I would say 5 might be generous. There's still, that's the problem, is there's still question marks with some of the guys you're counting on, right? Even Vinny Pasquantino comes with question marks, right? We believe in his bat. I believe in it, but he's one of the guys we're counting on. Think about that. I mean, how many real at-bats of major league production does he have? And he's one of the ones we're putting in the good column, which speaks to just kind of how dire it is right now, doesn't it?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's terrible for the Royals to be relying on Pasquantino because, yes, he may have a lack of experience, but with the exception of the last couple of weeks last year when his shoulder started barking, he's given us absolutely no reason to think he can't hit. And I mean, he has been as hot as any hitter in the American League for the last 10 days or so. So that's not the part that concerns me. If of the 5 guys, the ones that I'd be most concerned about, Nelson Velasquez is still, I'm still not certain we can rely on him. He's got a high batting average on balls in play. And unlike Pasquantino, I think his track record in the minor leagues was solid, but it wasn't elite. So I'm a little more concerned about him. The flip side of that is I still think Maikel Garcia currently is in the bad column, and I still think there's a chance that can be corrected, and that's something we'll talk about. But the problem, the real concern I have is I have really no confidence in the other three lineup spots or three positions, whatever you want to say. There's three dead spots in the lineup that I'm not sure they're going to suddenly turn around without a change in personnel, and that's I think what we really have to worry about.
Well, let's zero in on Garcia first, because he is batting at the leadoff, and I'm with you. I think there's a pedigree there that he's going to hit better than this. We all agree on that, but how much better, and is the leadoff ultimately where he needs to be? Anyway, and by the way, there's also the age-old question I love to ask: if not him, then who?
Right.
Which gets really difficult, or is it just bumping up the three that you know to get them at the top and get them more at bats? But let's start with Garcia. Where's your concern?
My concern is I would still say yellow. I'm not even to orange yet, let alone red on the color meter. There's a couple reasons for that. One is if you look at his batted ball metrics, he is still hitting the ball hard. He's still hitting the ball, frequently, and when he makes contact, he's making good quality contact. It's come down certainly since his very very hot first week of the season. He's been ice cold, but if you just look at the season as a whole, his current batting average, is not reflective of what he actually has done um, at the plate. He has a 174 batting average right now in a 223 OBP, right? Those are terrible. But his expected batting average is 248 based on the quality of the balls that he's hitting, his strikeout rate, et cetera, et cetera. Last year, his exit velocity was 91.8 average, right, which was elite. I think it was like 87th percentile in the major leagues. One of the reasons why you and I thought he was a breakout candidate was like he hit the ball with the exit velocity of a power hitter, and he was not a power hitter. This year, the exit velocity has dropped all the way to 91.3. It's dropped half a mile. He's gone from 87th percentile to 81st percentile. He's still hitting the ball hard. And the launch angle, which we talked about, has gone up from 6 degrees to about 8.5 degrees overall. So his barrel percentage is still way up from last year. His hard hit percentage, I think, has dropped just a little bit. So he was elite last year at 93%. He's at 70% hard hit. But what that basically means is his average velocity is about the same. He's hitting a few balls really hard. He's hitting a few balls a little bit softer. But there's nothing there that makes me worry that he's a fundamentally different hitter than last year. He may have traded a little bit of contact for a little bit of launch angle, and that's a trade I think he should make. He's been unlucky. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and specifically about him being in the leadoff spot, is I was worried about, is he pressing? Is he swinging at pitches outside the strike zone? He's been in a slump. You tend to see that. Should they move him out of the top spot in the lineup and bring in a more patient hitter? He's never been an elite OBP guy, but he's been a pretty good OBP guy in the minor leagues. So I was looking at those numbers. And one of the things that really stuck out from last year, that another reason why we thought he was a breakout candidate was how good he was at not chasing pitches outside the strike zone. Last year, according to Baseball Savant, he was at a chase rate of 20.6%. He swung and missed he swung out 1 out of 5 pitches that were outside the strike zone. That's excellent. That's, I think, 89th percentile. So, I mean, by Royal standard, it's elite. I mean, he didn't swing at a ton of pitches outside the strike zone. This year, it's actually gone down to 19%. He's in the 91st percentile. So he's basically not swinging at a lot of pitches outside the strike zone. The main difference in his performance this year, the reason why his walk rate has not been great and he doesn't have a huge OBP, one is he's seeing more pitches in the strike zone. He's seeing 60% of the pitches that a pitchers throw to him are in the strike zone, which is not surprising because he's a leadoff hitter on a team that's got Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, and Salvador Perez behind him. Like, pitchers are highly motivated to throw him strikes because they do not want to walk the leadoff hitter in front of a really, really strong 2-3-4 the Royals have. The one other thing, though, that is a weird flag, it may just be a sample size thing, but concerns me a little bit. Last year, when he did swing at pitches outside the strike zone, he made contact 65% of the time. This year, that's down to 40. So when he does swing out at pitches outside the strike zone, he's missing a lot. That, I think, is more fixable. That's less of a long-term concern than if you were swinging at too many pitches outside the strike zone. So at this moment, I am still not ready to say he should be moved out of that spot.
A couple things. One, in your first initial comment, you mentioned, well, they got shut out today, but one game's not going to make that big a deal. And you cited all these numbers about where they rank for the whole year, largely filled by beating the hell out of the White Sox and the Astros, who were not playing well. And so now against the Orioles, which they played earlier, and they played them 6 times and they're 2-4 against them, right? Those are the big boys. Now, Baltimore may be the biggest of big boys. And so if we're to measure this team, I think most of us have an eye towards either winning a weak Central, the Guardians right now, or beating up on the A's and taking advantage of some schedule. They've had a very soft schedule so far this year as well. We ran those numbers this week on the program. But, from a standpoint, I do think that part of it needs to be on Garcia as well. Like, come on, man. You had the White Sox to fatten up against, and now we're seeing the better pitching. You went into spring training with one of your big questions. Can he lift the ball? Is he getting the ball in the air? He's at exit velocity, but is he getting the ball in the air? Is he consistently doing the things it takes to get base hits? And, I agree. We liked him as a breakout candidate. Doesn't mean he will break out.
Sure.
We just thought there were some ingredients there. But, part of what I think he's facing is just what this whole team is facing. This is what it's like when you play good teams.
It is. And the thing I will say is, and this is based on my preseason expectations, so this is not necessarily based on what's happened now, is, like you said, there are good teams, but then there are the Orioles. And I really do feel like the Orioles are a class. So it's very easy for us to say, well, the Orioles, yeah, sure, they're 13-9, but they have a losing record now, I think, 6-7, or 7-8 when they're not playing the White Sox, because they played the White Sox 7 times. But the way I would break it down is they are, 6-1 against the White Sox with a plus 18 run differential. Against the Orioles, they're 2-4, but only a -2 run differential. They've played those teams, much closer, than the 2-4 record would suggest. And then against everybody else, they are 5-4, but with, if you do the math right, and I hope I'm doing the math right, a plus 22 run differential. And that's really what, the reason to be optimistic about this team is the run differential as much as the record. They have actually been somewhat unlucky. They were a little bit unlucky against the Orioles in terms of run differential. Yesterday, being down 7-0, to come back and almost win that game, that was, look, there are no moral victories. We sometimes say, and that's certainly true in October. It's true in September. In April, you know what? I'll take a moral victory. What they did yesterday was in from the standpoint of how I look at the rest of the season and the quality of this team. If I'm trying to figure out how good this team is, what they did yesterday actually was fairly impressive against a really good team. They did not just lay down their bats against Corbin Burns. They came back and were in that game. So I still think the quality is good here. And I would specifically say I'm less concerned about the pitching staff. The offense, yes, I am concerned. Today was, the first time they were shut out all season. So, this is their worst offensive performance. Cole Irvin, was not the kind of pitcher that should have been shutting them down. That concerns me. The pitching side of things, we'll get into Cole Ragans and some other stuff. Against the Orioles specifically, I think the Orioles are cut above the rest of the league, but offensively, they're the best offense in the American League. They may be the best offense in baseball. Just if you give me a moment, let me go through the OPSs of their entire lineup today for the season. All right, I'm not even going to mention the names of these players, but in the leadoff spot, they had a guy who, at the end of the day, 902 OPS. Number 2, spot in the lineup, 741. Number 3, 892. Number 4, 765. Number 5, 888. Number 6, 833. Their number 7 hitter currently has an 1195 OPS. Their number 8 hitter has 1,031 OPS. And keep in mind, league average is around 730, 740, somewhere in that range. Every one of these guys is above average, most of them way above average. The number 9 hitter, fine. He has a 127 OPS. The number 9 hitter is Jackson Holliday, who is the number 1 prospect in baseball. Has been in the major leagues for like 2 weeks. Like, this offense is ridiculous. Their number 7 and 8 hitters hit back-to-back home runs off Seth Lugo. On any other team, you'd be like, wow, Seth Lugo is giving a home runs to the 7 and 8 hitters. Their number 7 and 8 hitters are incredible. So I'm not as concerned with how the pitching staff did. But the lineup, yes, because the lineup, you can look at 4 guys in that lineup and be like, they're getting no production from those 4 spots.
I hate to go back to it, but 27-9. That's outscoring the White Sox, right? That's a big part of this equation.
Sure.
Against the Astros, they outscored the Astros 28-8. I mean, so like the entire run differential is there. The rest is 500, right? We agree?
Yeah, but you beat up on the bad teams and
Agreed.
hold close to 500 against the good teams. If you told me that that's what the Royals formula would be this year, I would have taken it. And that's maybe not the formula for 100 wins, but 85 wins? Sure, you could do that. Maybe 88.
Yeah, and I think that's the question is, can they, yes, but 500 runs, run differential, against everybody but 2 teams isn't going to work.
No,
right?
It's true, but they've only played 5 teams so far this year. I mean, the Twins and Mets, they're about 500. They're under 500 against the Orioles. It really comes down to, are the Astros really this bad after being in the ALCS 7 years in a row, or do they just look bad? The Royals got them in a rough stretch, and part of the reason they look so bad is because they got their butts kicked by the Royals. I don't know. It's April. Like, let's preface everything we're saying right now, including our playoff optimism index, with the caveat it's April, and things can swing wildly in the span of a week or 2. But the evidence we have is they're not a bad team. There may not be a good team.
Oh, I agree.
They're probably a mediocre team, but mediocre to good, maybe on the high side of mediocre. That'd be a huge win for them.
But Hunter Renfroe needs to hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was better there for a while. Let me ask you this: would you move Garcia out of the lineup for his own good, out of the leadoff
spot? You could do that. Here's what's interesting. So if you break down the Royals OPS, where they rank in the American League by the spot in the lineup, it's interesting because we say they're not hitting at the top and the bottom, and that's true. I didn't realize to what degree it's true. So here's how it's gone so far this year, and this is not counting today, but all their leadoff hitters combined rank 13th in the American League in OPS out of 15 teams. 13th, pretty bad, right? Not surprising. Actually, they're dead last in OBP. Maikel Garcia is killing them with the OBP out of the leadoff spot. But from the number 2 spot in the lineup, they're second. Number 3 spot in the lineup, second. Number 4 spot in the lineup, 5th. Number 6 spot in the lineup, 7th. Sorry, number 5 spot in the lineup, 7th. Number 6 spot in the lineup, 4th. And then 7th, 8th, and 9th lineup spots, they are 12th, 10th, and 10th in the American League. If you break that down by saying take the number 2 through number 6 hitters in the lineup, the heart of the lineup, they lead the American League in OPS. They have the best offense in the league, better than the Orioles, from 2 to 6. They are 10th in the 7th, 8th, and 9th spots. I'm actually surprised they're not worse than that. There are a lot of teams that have terrible offenses right now. Like the Tigers are just dead last. And there's a reason why the Tigers, despite having some pretty good pitching, are not quite as successful as the Royals right now. And then, like I said, 13th out of the leadoff spot. But the point is that 2 through 6 is leading the league. They have 5. This is what I'm talking about. They have, in some of it's luck, sure. That Nelson Velasquez may not be this good. Vinny Pasquantino may not be this good, but the important thing is the 5 hitters that are hitting are batting consecutively, 2 through 6. And that is the key, is that, give Couture credit because he quickly moved Velasquez up to 6 and Renfroe down to 8, like 3 games into the season when he saw this wasn't working. And so there's an argument to be made that maybe you move Garcia down to 6 and slide those guys up 1. But the point is keep those 5 guys together. because one of the few things that really moves the needle with lineup construction is just bunching the good hitters together, right? You'd much rather have, if you're going to get 9 hits in a game, you don't want 1 hit in every single inning. You'll never score, right? If you're all singles. I'll take 3 singles in the first inning, 3 singles in the fourth, 3 singles in the seventh, and nothing in the other innings, and you'll score a lot more runs. So that's, keeping those guys together is important. So the reason why I'm kind of reluctant to move things is I think Garcia will start hitting, but even if he doesn't, having 2 through 6 staying together is more important to me than trying to mix it. You move Garcia down and, you split up those hitters or something. Just keep those guys together as long as they're hitting.
We're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear since 1994. Don't risk accidents, liability, problems in your parking lot when you can get a beautifully striped lot done, very soon. Brightly striped lot cuts down on accidents and keeps your parking lot as safe as possible. Find Gann Asphalt and Concrete online at gannasphalt.com. That's gannasphalt.com. or call 816-484-3338. I'm with you on the keeping the lineup together. I wonder if you wouldn't just put it forward. What they did last year was MJ Melendez. Right? That would be the one thing that you could try to do. But I'm kind of with you. I think I think it's a worthwhile exercise to go through, like you just did. Okay, what other options do we have? Well, we don't want to mess with what's not broke. Okay, let's not mess with 2 through 6. And that's the problem. Well, 7, 8, 9 sucks. So he's the guy we want to grow into it at some point. You got to throw him in the deep end and hope he can do it. And so I'm with you. I think it's a worthwhile question to ask. And everybody can say, well, get him out of there, which I saw a lot of on Twitter. And even we had a couple of comments here. And I understand that mindset. Sure. And I'm open to hearing what you want to try. But I don't hear the home run idea that's to put in there. So it's kind of like, okay, guys, let's go. I mean, it's time to swim.
Right. And again, it's April 21st. Like to make a move especially for a team that's actually playing well above expectations in April, to make a drastic move would smell of desperation to me. If it's May 21st and Maikel Garcia is still doing, then you got to figure something out. But to me, if you move all, you got 2 through 6 and make them 1 through 5, okay, you keep them all together. But then literally all 5 guys in your lineup who have been successful to this point have to adjust to a new spot in the lineup. And sure, it maybe doesn't matter much. Vinny's still batting between Bobby and Salvi. But at the same time, it's like, do you really want to make all 5 of those guys be like, I'm moved up, I've moved to a different spot in the lineup? When they're doing well, it's working, and you just have one problem spot that you might be able to turn around with the talent on hand anyway.
If I thought it would make an appreciable difference, yes, I would move them, because I believe if you can hit, you can hit. And it's not this magic voodoo of batting 2, but to your point, I don't see where you gain much. Either way, you're still going to have this long rut of 4 batters that are a problem. And so you're counting on those 5 to do it whenever. Might as well give them a chance to see a few pitches. And that's where when you bat leadoff, is that where Maikel Garcia is at? Is he trying to take too many pitches? Is he getting behind in counts? Is he, is it in his head? He's got to work it out. Like, Maikel Garcia is one of the building blocks for this team. He has to work it out. You can bitch about Piccolo. You can bitch about Cotrero. Maikel Garcia has to get in the box and figure it out.
Yeah. And again, of the 4 problem lineup spots, he's the one guy who I actually have the confidence has the talent to turn it around. And I don't think anybody would be surprised with that week into the season. He had started off, looking like a breakout candidate. So he can absolutely get back there. And to me, wasting any time on Maikel Garcia right now is time that could be spent on the bottom 3 guys in the lineup where it's not clear to me those guys can turn it around. And so that's the question I pose to you. Would you make any changes in terms of personnel in the 7, 8, 9 spots right now? Would you start somebody off the bench, bring up somebody like what? Even one additional hitter to this lineup, I think, would make a huge difference. You go from 4 problem spots to 3, and if Garcia turns around, it's only 2. I would argue even the 2015 Royals had 2 problem spots in the lineup, but they had 7 consecutive hitters that were really good.
I mean, really, Drew Waters is your only guy, right?
Probably.
Unless there's somebody from the non-prospect list that you're going to say, okay, yes, we think this guy's
right.
He's changed his swing, unless we hear something about some career minor leaguer who's now,
CJ Alexander or something,
yes,
gets off to an incredible hot start. I mean,
but
that's
he is off
possible.
to a decent
He
start.
is, right, but he's 27 years old.
Right.
If you think that he's suddenly changed as a player, I mean, Ryan O'Hearn was like 26, 27 when he came up and caught fire for, a couple months. But I agree. I think Drew Waters is the guy. And the question is then, do you sacrifice the defense with Kyle Isbell? At what point do we say it's the bat's just not working? Because, I mean, I love Kyle Isbell's defense. I think at the very least he should be the fourth outfielder. But, you can't have a guy, no matter how good his defense is, even if he is batting ninth, you can't have a guy whose OPS as of this moment is now down to 467. That's just not going to cut it.
I mean,
OBP.
The guy who's hitting, if we were just going to mention names, is Logan Porter.
I mean, I think Logan Porter can hit at the major league level. The question is, you can't play the outfield, as far as I know, and I certainly can't play center field. So, I mean, this is the problem. It's like, so at some point, the guy that you and I questioned all along, Hunter Renfroe, at some point, what point do we say it's not working with him, make him a platoon guy? If Logan were left-handed, if one of these guys left-handed, maybe CJ Alexander I think he's a left-handed hitter. Maybe you at some point have to consider a platoon there. I don't know that we're there yet. And I will say this: when we're talking about problem spots, I should point out that one of those problem spots might be fixed right now with Maikel Garcia. He wasn't in the lineup today. I'm assuming he's coming back from some back problems. I wanted to give him a day off, not play him too many games consecutively. But that one is a problem in waiting. But like the solution may be here. We don't know. So Massey is going to be, a guy to watch very, very carefully for the next, however many weeks, because I think if he hits, he's probably never going to be a great OBP guy, but if he starts hitting some pop, I mean, the Royals hadn't had an extra base hit from a second baseman all season. And in his first game, his second at bat, he doubled. And that's what we need. So it really comes down to the right field, the Hunter Renfroe spot, center field, the Kyle Isbell spot. Those are the two spots. And the nice thing is, outfielders are, you should be able to find an outfielder. Worst case scenario, if the Royals are still in this in June and those are still huge spots, at some point you can start looking at the trade market. You don't need a gold-plated solution. A grade B solution will be perfectly fine and be an upgrade on those guys. Right, but at the other two spots with Garcia and Massey, I think you have to wait and see what happens, and just have to hope that the talent you have will make it work, and that nobody gets hurt. I mean, that's the other big thing. If anybody else goes down, there's a problem.
Vinny Pasquantino to the leadoff. Go Anthony Rizzo.
It's an interesting idea. But again, where do you put Garcia then? Like, if you're going to move him down to 6, I would just assume move everybody up one. At least then they're still batting in the same spots in the lineup. Right. Although I like the idea of Vinny ahead of Bobby Witt more than Salvi, because putting Vinny and Salvi, those guys back to back, the one concern I have is the double play risk. Because Vinny is your most patient hitter, right? He's the guy who gets on base with a walk. And that walk is a lot more valuable in front of a guy who doesn't hit into double plays. And Bobby, he'll hit the ball hard enough. Sometimes he will ground a double play, but that speed, that's unlikely. I'd consider it. I just don't think that that's necessary right now.
Prado and Waters are the guys you'd like it to be. Prado's still striking out about 30% of the time and not delivering any kind of real pop.
Right.
And Drew Waters' numbers look pretty good. He's still also striking out roughly 25% of the time. So
his numbers, I mean, he's hitting exactly the way he's hit in yes. Omaha for the last 2 years, which is a compliment because he's hit well in Omaha. I don't see any change there. He was benched, 3 days ago, and then pulled in the middle of a game and then missed the following game. And we were concerned about injury, and the Royals made a brief announcement that was manager's discretion, which is code word for he did something that caused him to be pulled. And they didn't discuss more, which I respect. I think they handled whatever it was. They probably handled it well. They made a point of it without embarrassing him. But he's healthy. That's the important thing. Whatever it was, hopefully he learns from it. But he's the one guy in AAA right now that I think has the talent. He's right on the cusp because if he improves by 5%, he's an everyday outfielder in the major leagues. I mean, his track record already in the major leagues, and he's a slightly below average player overall. Slightly below average defense in center, slightly above in right field. So he could fill either one of those problem spots. Those are the two problem spots the Royals have. He could play either one, and his bat has just been slightly below average. So again, he would be an upgrade on what the Royals are getting to this point. If he can improve by 5%, he will be a perfectly adequate everyday player. If he regresses by 5%, he's a replacement level player. So he's right on the cusp. And you talk about it's up to Maikel Garcia. It's up. Drew Waters' career is in his hands right now.
If he would come up and be slightly below average, he'd be a big improvement. So let's keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
All things relative. Drew Waters is going to be up with this club and he's going to play. Question is when and where, and who's out of the way for him. So I think time will tell, but he's going to get a shot, and I'm sure that part of it is he's like, hey, let's go. He's looking at the bottom of the lineup in the big club, and is probably wanting his shot at the big league club. They've got things they want him to work on, and he's probably not getting it done. Or there was some kind of team etiquette, what have you. But I agree. I mean, they obviously handled some kind of team rules. So we sit and wait. We'll see what they do against the Toronto Blue Jays and see if the lineup can come around. Michael Massey has come back to the club. That gives it a chance to be a little bit different, gives him some more depth. And Michael Massey it's time for him to get going. It's a lot of 20-somethings. That's time for them to start producing. Let's talk about Cole Ragans. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and every time a guy has a bit of a rough start, be like, oh, God, is he hurt? I don't think that was the case. We didn't exactly get a lot of loud noises with him. It wasn't like they were spanking the ball all over the yard.
Right.
But it was his worst outing, and he had to be pulled without getting through two. Did you have a reaction to his tough day?
My reaction is like I was saying. I think it's as much about the Orioles as Cole Ragans. I mean, his line, he gave up 7 runs, but it was all in 1 inning, and he had 4 strikeouts and no walks and no home runs. Like they basically just singled and doubled him to death. His velocity was not down. It's been pretty consistent start to start. In fact, actually, his average fastball velocity has ticked up just a little bit with every start this season, which is pretty typical for April. Like, guys are still kind of getting their, the temperatures warming up. Their arms are still stretching out a little bit. So everything I know about the game, his command was a little off. He was missing spots, and he was facing a team that you cannot make a mistake against. So I'm not that worried. Yes, his ERA, one bad inning basically, crapped out his ERA. I think it's 4.32. His FIP is 2.07. If he does this again, I'll be worried. With Cole Ragans, there's always that little extra worry because of his injury history and the lack of track record, right? The only concern I have here is there an injury? Is there any hiding anything? So I'm looking at his pitch data as much as anything else. I did not see anything from his start that made me worry about that. I just saw a really good pitcher missing his spots against a really, really good hitting team. And honestly, I will say this: is as frustrating as it was to see Cole Ragans lose that game, and he finally got run support and the Royals lost. The fact that Alec Marsh has pitched as well as he has twice against the Red Sox, so the Orioles this year, against that lineup, it's only been 4 starts with him, but man, Alec Marsh most of the guys the Royals have had, have been supporting this team's record to this point. They're playing at the sort of the top end of their ability, but not better than I thought they were capable of. Alec Marsh is the one guy to this point. He's like exceeding my even my best case scenario. Like, this is the guy you dream about, but you never really thought you would see. And it's only been 4 starts, but if Alec Marsh pitching as well as he has against Baltimore makes you really hopeful he can continue to be a really good starter all season.
Yeah, and I think this just fits into not to keep slapping us on the back, but we said going in the upside is with the youth, right? You're signing, and there's actually still some upside with Seth Lugo, but not a 1 ERA upside. Right. But we said coming in that the guys that are going to have to get it done are going to be Brady Singer, Cole Ragans, Alec Marsh, and I'm with you. I think Marsh has been a tremendous surprise. 5.74, I think you said his career minor league
5.72 ERA. Yep, in the minor leagues. I mean,
which just, I think it really does speak to just one, how they're doing something different, right? This is the new regime because his results sucked before this, and now he's suddenly way better at the big league level. This is not how it's supposed to work, and that is extraordinarily encouraging. And the better he is, the less you have to be like, well, Cole Ragans needs to win 24 games and have, Ron Guidry, like, season, some phenomenal year, the better he is, the better Brady Singer is, the less you need. Michael Wacha can just be Michael Wacha.
Exactly.
Right. And so, yeah, I think Marsh is one of the most exciting things that's happening right now.
Yeah. The other guy I want to bring up, he's not at the Alec Marsh level yet because he's in the bullpen. But if right now, gun to my head, I had to pick one reliever in this organization to throw a scoreless inning, my life depended on it. My first choice, James McArthur. My second choice, probably John Schreiber. He's actually been really good. I love the sidearm guy, and he keeps the ball down, so he's not a home run threat. Angel Serpa is third, at least. He had another great outing today. He's up to 9 strikeouts, 1 walk in 9 innings this season. I mean, and you talk about the youth, like the Royals came into the season. One of the things that's so frustrating is not just that they're 106 losses, but like they have one of the worst farm systems in the sport. But what that kind of hides, and the reason why the Royals are able to do what they're doing with a terrible record last year and a terrible farm system is that their farm system was in the major leagues, right? When we talk about a farm system, the point about having a prospect is that he might be a future major leaguer. So having a current major leaguer who was a prospect a year or two ago is, you underrate the value of that when all you do is obsess about top prospects. Angel Serpa was never anybody's idea of a top prospect, but he's a major league ready with upside, 24 years old. He got to the majors at 21, and he's sort of bounced between the bullpen and the rotation and up and down from AAA, hiding who he is. He's throwing strikes. He's missing bats. He's versatile. He's able to pitch, get one, be a one out guy kind of, as a lefty specialist. He's able to throw multiple innings. He has a proven track record of, being in the rotation. So at this point, if one of the starters goes down, we talk about, Jordan Lyles is up. If the Royals are serious about winning, they might go down to Angel Serpa before they go to Jordan Lyles. They should. So
yeah, and
give him some credit.
And by the way, one of the things was mentioned that Serpa did have the bases loaded walk today, but not the grand slam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that is part of, yes, you don't want to give in, and yes, you don't want to give up a run, but you don't want to give up the big inning, right? And so let's give some credit to that.
Well, I mean, he came in with the bases loaded and 1 out, walked the guy, and then struck. I mean, so he inherited a mess not of his own making, and then struck out 2 guys in a row to get out of that. You give me a bases loaded 1 out situation, and you give up 1 run out of that, I'll take that every time.
Yeah. I mean, and I agree. I get the point. It is like, he's not. Tony's just saying, look, he's not lights out, but we're also not. We're grading the Royals bullpen. We're not grading, the 24 Royals, not the 15 Royals.
And we're grading Angel Serpa, a guy who was kind of a long shot to make the roster in the first place. I mean, the forgotten man in the organization's 40-man roster, and as a credit to the Royals that they found a spot for him. I thought it was the right choice, and he's proved it right and then some. So,
yeah, yes, but so back to Alec Marsh. The fact that he's not. We've seen Royals guys have a few good starts and look pretty good. We're getting past a few now, but the peripheral numbers look good. The number of base runners.
Mm-hmm.
I always talk about the Sean Sedlicheks and the Bobby Keppels who had 5 minutes, but even in the midst of having a pretty good ERA through 2 or 3 starts, they'd be like, oh, okay, guy's thrown 19 innings in 3 outings, and he's had 27 base runners. They just haven't come around. He's keeping guys off the bases, and so that's incredibly thinking. And we had the question here, Brian Sweeney, modern day Leo Mazzoni. I'm not ready to go there.
I prefer the term baseball spags. That's my name for him now.
For Steve Spagnuolo, who don't follow the football side of things. I mean, listen, I think there's a lot to like about what they're doing. And you mentioned Schreiber. They're finding guys. They're developing their own guys. They're doing it at every possible with every possible guy. They're having success, and I think that's an important part of it. Common. You can dream a rotation: Ragans, Singer, Marsh, Serpa, Barnett.
Well, the good thing is they don't have to worry. I mean, short of an injury to Lugo and Wacha, you don't have to worry about that this year, and even next year you have Lugo. Like you get Lugo no matter what for next year. That gives the Royals a lot of time. I mean, look, 2 years from now, I'm hoping we're seeing Frank Mazzucato in there. But like Mason Barnett is, if we're talking about depth, it's funny because on the hitting side, the Royals, there are some options in AAA, but they need them. The problem is that the hitting, they don't have the depth. Right now, they have the depth at the major league level on the pitching side, but we're terrified if they have more than one guy go down on the pitching staff. The way Barnett is pitching, he might be an option, this year, which would be helpful because they're going to need. We know they're going to need some depth later in the year, but right now, I think none of those guys are ready yet. That's why I think that's why Serpa is so important, because right now, if somebody goes down and they need someone to step up, I think Serpa is the guy who can help them right now in the rotation.
By the way, John McMillan, 12 walks and 5 1/3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are. I mean, look, Walter Pennington out of the blue is like, if Will Smith goes on the injured list, like I really thought after the Grand Slam on Friday he would, but he came out today and shockingly threw a scoreless inning. But at some point, if they need to make a move, I actually think Walter Pennington might be that guy.
13 innings, 19 Ks, 3 walks.
That's fine, maybe, but again, all the other guys, it's like, the stuff's there, but the command is not.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of help there. How about this one? I do want to address it. We kind of touch on it. I did touch on it last week. Kyle said he got in late. Hope you haven't answered this, but as things are now, if you're JJ, do you look to sell or add? I mean, we can talk about the schedule, or we can talk about the optimism meter, because I think the playoff optimism meter correlates into whether you're buying or selling, doesn't it?
It does. And I mean, the easy answer right now is you don't do anything. It's April. Again, you don't do anything. Probably not till July, but maybe June. The other thing I'll say, though, is that when we talk about like adding, as frustrating as it is that you have like 2 dead lineup spots right now, that is also a potential opportunity, because again, you can add without you don't have to make the Aroldis Chapman trade in reverse. You don't have to give up one of your top prospects, even in a weak minor league system like the Royals. You don't have to give up a top prospect to get a player who will be better than what Hunter Renfroe and Kyle Isbell have done to this point in the season. So there's levels of adding, levels of subtracting, but I don't think you do. I don't think you start looking for outside talent, in at least for another month or so.
Yeah, listen, I'll just say it, not to light a fuse here, but I'm selling now. Like, they have to go, to me, over 40 plus games, and that's why this stretch of schedule, they have to prove that you should not be selling. There's no way that you won 56 games and you're now one of the best teams in the American League. And I mean, I'm not ready to buy that yet. I mean, I think we're seeing the holes in the lineup. And if anybody goes down, it's slim pickings. And so for me, we're like, if you can, to Randy's point, you can grab, who was the guy? Kurt Laskanik, Jason Frazier.
Exactly. Yeah. Those are good examples, right?
Guys that they have bought in 2003 when they were in it, and Frazier, I don't even remember what year they got him, but they was in the mix that, without going out and giving premium prospects. But Estuary Ruiz cannot be going for, the final, what you hope in the final. I don't even mind that deal. He's a whole hot case of A's stupidity, but I just don't think you can give up guys that could be building blocks yet. But again, get hot in this stretch, come home, from this 19 game stretch at 11-8, and I'll be, well, okay, let's take a look. But right now, I think you're still.
I think, but the idea of like talking about buying something in April, it's like, yeah, of course, if they fall out of it now, the idea of like making a trade on April 21st or whatever because you believe in this team that's insanity, right? Like 20 games is not enough. 22 games, I guess, is not enough. It's actually 13-9. They're not 21-1. 13-9. You have, to take the meme, with Leo DiCaprio, they had my curiosity. Now they have my attention, but they don't have my undying loyalty and support yet. Keep it up for another month. And then we have to talk about, okay, how do we make this team better? The one thing I'll disagree with you is that you said, this is not, you don't go from 56 wins to being one of the best teams in the American League. I agree with that. But the Royals don't have to be one of the three
Right.
best teams, 4, 5 best teams. They have to be the 6th best team,
To
and
get in
that
this,
changes the calculus, even from the last time the Royals were good, because they've gone from 5 teams to 6 now in the playoffs.
well, I mean, I guess, and then the question would be, what's your value of 3 in the door? Like, do you want to just get in there, get your ass kicked in 3 games, and go home? The
If
wild
that's
card
what
would get,
happens, no.
how
But
much is that worth?
right? Well, here's the thing: if you go 84 and 78, and you get in as the 5 or 6 seed, you might be the Miami Marlins, who are their playoff run last year lasted about 27 hours, or you might be the Arizona Diamondbacks, who went to the World Series. They both went 84 and 78. Nobody knows once you get you just buy a ticket, get a lottery ticket, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Sure, we do. Sure, we know.
You
know the
know, man,
obvious.
you can make a heck of a lot of money if you know what's going to happen in the playoffs, my friend.
Well, we know the obvious answer of which one should have been counting on it being real. Let me ask you this then: was it the team that entered the playoffs as the wild card with a negative 57 run differential, or was it the team that entered it? Well, take that back. Arizona was negative 15.
Right. I was going to say the Marlins. I absolutely agree with your point. The Marlins had the worst run differential of any playoff team, I think, in Major League history. So yes, I mean, I was extremely skeptical of the Marlins going in, and it was justified. But the Diamondbacks were outscored for the season, and they made it to the World Series. But even if you use that as your argument, that's the reason why we're having this discussion, is because the Royals have a plus 38 run differential right now. Not even because they're 13-9. If they were 13-9 and been outscored by 6 runs, we both would be like, it's fun. It's nice to have a team that doesn't suck. But I don't think we would have introduced a playoff optimism meter today that we're about to unveil if they had been outscored this year. It's the run differential, which I'm not sure if they're still best in baseball, but if not, they're awfully close. I mean,
The Guardians are in front of
the Guardians, which is very annoying. Remember when we were talking about how the AL Central sucks? That feels like a long time ago. Yeah, the Guardian. I do not know what's going on with Cleveland, but the nice thing is there are 3 wild card spots. And yes, the Royals are second in the major leagues in run differential, but they're also second in their own division. So
by the way,
it's early.
By the way, with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews in every project, coming with a written warranty. GAN Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays, costly expenses. You can find them online right now at GANasphalt.com. That's GANasphalt.com, or call 816-484-3338. GAN Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Make sure the first impression you give to any customer, any client, is a good one. With a beautiful, smooth parking lot. That's what GAN Asphalt and Concrete does. No matter what you need done, one contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GANasphalt.com. So let's get to the playoff optimism meter. What do we got?
Well, first, I just want to highlight this comment. I love this. Ethan Stith, we want Trout.
Yeah, you like
yes,
that?
Yes, I mean, if Mike Trout hadn't already nixed the idea of being traded, yes, I would back up the farm system on April 22nd to get Mike Trout. If we get ownership to authorize spending and put him in center field, yes, I would love put Mike Trout in front of Bobby Witt. Oh yeah, or Witt in front of Trout. Okay, we can dream.
Yeah.
That ain't happening. All right, playoff optimism meter. We're just doing this on a 10-point scale. Is I think what we decided. And yeah.
Is this to make the playoffs? Is this to do damage in the playoffs?
Make the playoffs. Look, this is
just get in.
The 2024 Royals making the playoffs after losing 106 games. That would be historic. Like, that's part of the fun of this whole run right now, is just how bad, ironically, how bad the Royals have been the last couple of years actually is going to make this more special, right? And even if they are 2 and done, as it is nowadays with the schedule, it would still be an incredible accomplishment. So this is just, will they make the playoffs? I'm putting the optimism meter right now. I might be higher than you. I'm going 6 out of 10.
You're higher.
Okay. I'm going 6 out of 10. And the reason for that is the run differential, right? It's just that this team is actually 13-9 and probably should be 15-7 on paper. I'm not saying they have a 60% chance of making the playoffs. Maybe we should use that as but I would say a solid, they have a one chance in 3. I think I'm very, very comfortable saying they have about a 30-35% chance. Most of the playoff projection formulas online, FanGraphs, Baseball Reference, etc., have them in that 30 to 40% range, which sounds crazy. I mean, but even the metrics were saying that. So I'll say 6 out of 10 in terms of my optimism meter.
They are currently the second wild card, and they are all of 1/2 game in front of Boston for the third. Right, and you're 1-3.
The one chance in 3. Their playoff odds are about 35%. 30.
And so and they're a 6.
I mean, I don't. Maybe we should just use percentage chance. I mean, 6 is just because.
I like the scale because it creates this kind of loopiness.
Yeah. Well, I think just because it's April and the idea that they're doing this at all, maybe I'm giving a little bit of a bump there. But I'm enjoying the fact that it's not crazy to say that the Kansas City Royals in 2024 might make the playoffs, and that they might actually be even better than their record suggests. They probably are not, but the mere possibility. Because if this team wins 90 games, which is, I mean, it's unlikely, but it's not out of the the realm of possibility. I think they might have improved their record more than almost any team in modern Major League history. They would, I think, certainly be the winningest team.
Which is a reason for you to understand they're not going to win 90.
But I agree, except that if they did, it also makes it that much more historic. So the odds are higher, but also the accomplishment is greater. So I'm trying to weigh those two things.
I picked them for 77 wins. I think watching them against the Orioles, I feel pretty good about that number, right? I'm not as sold on the over 500, but I do think there are things that are like, because my 77 was based upon you can always finish 10 games higher or 20 games lower.
Mm-hmm.
Like 77 is not like they'd be 87. I'd be more like 74, 73. I just expected them to get a bit of a kiss this year because they got such a frown last year. But they're exceeding my expectations. I still think 87 now is probably the ceiling. Can we agree 10 is, if you go to a 10 on this scale at any point, you're saying they will make the playoffs. And if you back off to an 8 or 9 in a future week, your 10 was stupid.
I agree with that, which is why I don't anticipate going to 10 until well into September. But
okay.
6 is optimistic. I agree, but it's not. I don't think it's giddy. I don't think it's ridiculous, because the underlying metrics support that this team is better than I thought it was. Like, I had them, I think, at 75. I want to say, if I had to guess right now, I'd probably put them around 80, which is not a playoff team. But now they're definitely within spitting distance. They're definitely within a little bit more luck, continued good health, away from being, mathematically alive on the last week of the season.
I want to point out in the chat room, we got everything from Kevin saying 90 is silly. Cam says, I feel like I'm somewhere between Soren and Rany. They will finish somewhere around 80 wins. I love all the ones that they could have won, they're now going to win. They could have won 5 or 6 in the Orioles. I know they didn't, but Smith blew 2 games. Today's game was the only game that they got outplayed, which is a fair enough points. He's got 81 wins for his goal this year, right? That's just a goal. But I love this. Kansas City was pull it back a little, Rany. Kevin, passing the Kool-Aid now. And then finally, Cotman. I'm with Rany on this. I live kind of all over the place.
The bandwagon still has plenty of seats.
Yeah.
All right. But they will fill up quickly if they continue this. And like you said, this is like, even this upcoming series against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are the Royals have played really, like, what I consider to be maybe the best team in the league in the Orioles. They've played the worst team in the American League maybe in years in the White Sox. They've played an Astros team that is maybe the most disappointing team in the sport. Although I expected them to fall off, but I didn't expect them to fall off this badly. So I'm not sure where they are. And then the Twins, who might be the second most disappointing team in the sport. The Blue Jays are exactly where they're supposed to be in my mind, right? Like, I think they're 13-9 as well. 12-10. They're one game behind the Royals. It's exactly what I would think. They're a good but not great team, right? They don't have quite the offense the Orioles has. 4 games against them. If the Royals, even if they split the series and just play well, I think are evaluation of them should not change dramatically. Again, playing 500 against a team that is considered to be a playoff contender. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If
No,
they
I'm
take 3
fine.
out of 4, I'll feel a lot better. If they go 1-3, I'll feel, fairly, not significantly worse, but I'll definitely take a step back. So this next couple weeks is very crucial in terms of just determining our optimism for the rest of the season. That's why we're debuting this meter now.
Let's close with this. They're 1-2 in these first 19. What are you feeling like? The stretch of 19 against winning clubs. We'll see. Some of them may play their way out of that, but what do you think it's going to be now?
So let's see. So 7 of those games are against Toronto, and then you got 3 against Detroit, 3 against Texas, 3 against Milwaukee. So if they go 7, they have 16 more games. So if we see 7 and 9, that would be what, 8 and 11 for the whole stretch. You know what? I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna say they're gonna go 8 and 8.
8 and 8.
Yeah, I think they could do 8 and 8, which would put them at 9 and 10 for the whole 19 game stretch.
I want
I
to
think
see.
they're gonna be 500 against good teams.
I have not looked since the season began as to whether or not you can still. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if these win totals are still open. No, not everybody. Best and worst record. Can bet on that. Let's see where the Royals are for the best record on FanDuel. Plus, they're as long a shot as you can be.
To have the best record in the American League?
To have the best record in baseball.
In baseball? Yeah, I mean, I don't think any
of
of
the
us are
Angels and Pirates, which is it means they're not giving any credit to those teams. And then let's see, worst record. Worst regular season record. They are not near the favorites in that, though. They are 2, 4, 6, 8. The teams that are favored to have the worst record in front of them: White Sox, Rockies, A's. We knew those would be there. Nationals, Marlins, Pirates, Angels.
I'm kind of surprised that there aren't more teams that would be favored to be have the worst record in the sport. I mean, yes, they could fall off, but I just feel like the quality they've shown seems quite unlikely that they're going to suddenly fall. Because for one thing, at this point with the White Sox, you're going to have to lose 110 games to end up with the worst record in baseball. And I'm not saying it's unprecedented, but to be 13 and 9 to have a plus 38 run differential and to fall off that badly would take some catastrophic injuries or rehiring Allard Baird as general manager, one or the other.
Here's a better indicator. Teams to win 80 plus regular season games. Right? It's got every ball club to win 80 games. Royals are plus 102. Because part of that when you're betting them to be the best or worst is like the improbability of there's only 3 or 4 teams really that are in it for that. So kind of in the middle, doesn't matter. But 80 wins.
Plus 102. Again,
plus 102.
I don't sanction any gambling, but I mean, I wouldn't bet on that either way because I basically am saying 80 wins, and that's what the bookmakers are saying. And I think, but again, at the beginning of the season, I don't think it was plus 102, right? I think their over under was 73.5 or something like that. I know way too much about this stuff for way too much about these over unders for endeavor I don't take part in. But I think it's safe to say the Royals have materially improved their projection for the entire season based on the first 3.5 weeks of the season. I don't think that's being overly optimistic. I think that's just looking at the data, which suggests this is a better team than we thought. They might get hurt. If they get hurt, they're very susceptible for that to drop off because they don't have a lot of depth. But right now, as far as we can tell, they're healthy. And you assume healthy teams, healthy players to stay healthy more than injury-prone players. They don't have a ton of injury-prone guys that we know of on the team. So my optimism meter is 6 out of 10. What's yours? Did you give it an official number on that? 4. Okay. I mean, we're not that far apart. No. We're good. So
real quick,
I just hope we continue doing it and we don't just shelve it in June when they're 17 and 34 or something.
Cam wanted to know the numbers. Plus 120,000, which is basically 120 to 1 for the worst record, plus 200,000 or plus 20,000, which is basically 200 to 1 for the best record. So they're a long shot on both, which speaks to more of the 80 wins. They're now viewing this club as a near 500 team.
They're in the middle, right?
Yes.
And you know what? That's improvement for the Kansas City Royals to be in the middle. So
That is.
We'll take it for April 21st. I'm taking that. I'm very happy with that.
Listen, with Gann Asphalt and Concrete, every project comes with a written warranty. You're dealing with Kansas City's best. 30 years, celebrating 30 years of business. That's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots, whether it's seal coating, whether it's concrete bumpers, signage, striping. Make sure you've got a lot that's safe and one that doesn't cost you time when it comes to your business. Contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're online at GannAsphalt.com. So for the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.